Um, Imagine staring at a completely frozen, broken web page just because you forgot to check some hidden box in your browser setting.
Right. Yeah, we've all been there. It's so frustrating.
It really is. Now take that feeling and imagine standing in a freezing ice age cave, clutching a piece of hollowed-out mammoth ivory.
Okay, that is quite the jump.
I know, I know. On the surface, these two moments seem to exist in completely different universes.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we're actually going to uncover how the exact same biological panic connects them both.
Yeah, it's a fascinating connection.
Welcome to another deep dive into the sources.
Mm.
If you're joining us, you know we like to get past the surface level noise and look for the hidden architecture of, well, how things work.
Exactly. And today's stack of sources is incredibly eclectic.
Oh, totally. We are pairing some highly technical, honestly very dry, troubleshooting manuals for web browsers
It's very dry.
with translated archaeological research detailing the prehistoric origins of music, Neanderthal communication, and this ancient concept of a standard pitch.
It's a sweeping journey, really, from the digital age all the way back to the dawn of humanity.
Yeah.
We're looking at our desperate need for a shared language, and that manifests as this intense drive to create protocols and standards, because ultimately, those standards are the only thing that brings order out of absolute chaos.
I want to start with the modern digital side of things because looking at these technical sources, the sheer tediousness of these instructions is, well, it's agonizing.
Oh, for sure. It's a lot of menus.
It's these manuals describing this maddening modern ritual we've all had to do when a web page refuses to load.
Yeah, the screen just says the browser you're using has JavaScript turned off.
Exactly. And then it gives you these branching, complicated pathways to fix it depending on your software. Like I was reading the Chrome manual, and it's a 5-step labyrinth just to let a site load.
It really makes you work for it.
You have to dig into settings, find privacy and security, open site settings, locate the actual JavaScript option, and finally toggle sites can use JavaScript.
And the process is buried deep in the architecture of the browser. Plus, it changes depending on the environment you're in.
It changes completely. Like if you're on Microsoft Edge, you're hunting down a more menu, finding cookies and site permissions, and setting it to allowed.
Right.
Apple's Safari has you checking a box under the security tab in preferences, and if you're on Firefox, it is even wilder.
Oh yeah, Firefox is an adventure.
You have to literally type a warning phrase about .config into the address bar. The browser actually stops you and makes you click a button acknowledging that you might break your computer.
Just to browse the web.
Yeah. You have to manually search for a JavaScript.enabled preference and flip a binary switch from false to true. It is a ridiculous amount of effort just to use a search engine.
Well, we go through that agonizing process because JavaScript is the fundamental infrastructure of the modern web.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I was thinking about it, like, let's think of the internet as an international space station where millions of systems are constantly docking and undocking.
I like that analogy.
Right. So JavaScript isn't the bouncer keeping people out. It's more like the universal translator chip implanted in your browser.
Yes, exactly. When a server sends interactive data to your machine, it entirely expects your browser to understand the instructions.
On how to render it, how to move the elements.
Right, and how to respond to your clicks.
So without it enabled, the server is basically shouting complex instructions at you, but your screen just stares blankly back. There's no translation happening.
That's the perfect way to look at it. What's fascinating here is the underlying necessity for exact standardization.
Okay.
The entire network operates on the assumption that every node, every computer, shares this specific script.
Right.
So when your browser refuses to speak JavaScript or has the protocol disabled, communication breaks down at the structural level. You are effectively locked out of the collective global exchange of information.
The network just drops you.
Exactly. You isolate yourself. The server essentially says, if we can't sync our protocols, we can't interact, and it cuts the cord. And when your browser drops that connection, it isolates itself to survive, defaulting to a static, safe state.
Just a frozen page.
Right. But that terror of isolation, of being cut off from the network because you don't share the same protocol, that's not a modern phenomenon born from the internet.
Really?
No, it's biologically hardwired into us. To understand why, we really have to look at the original network drop. We have to travel back about 40,000 years.
Okay, so we're leaving the digital architecture behind and heading into the Ice Age.
Picture the scene detailed in our archaeological sources. We are in a dark, freezing cave in the middle of a brutal glacial period.
Sounds miserable.
It was. The concept of music as a form of entertainment simply does not exist yet. Early humans and Neanderthals are navigating a completely unforgiving environment.
Yeah, the text paints a very stark picture. I mean, they don't have complex, grammatically structured language yet.
No, not at all.
They're communicating with this chaotic mix of grunts, howls, maybe tapping rocks together, or snapping dry branches. It's a raw, terrifying environment.
Everyone is just making noise to survive.
Right. Either to warn of predators or just to try and soothe the immense fear of the dark.
And out of that chaotic wilderness, a profound need began to blossom.
The need to connect.
Yes, the need to find a shared frequency. This actually brings us to a groundbreaking concept proposed by Professor Stephen Mithen from the University of Reading.
Oh, the book from 2005, right.
Yes, in his book, The Singing Neanderthals, he introduces what he calls the theory. That's spelled H-M.
Okay.
It stands for holistic, multimodal, musical, and mimetic.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting. Are we saying that early humans were humming melodies at each other before they could actually speak?
That is exactly what the research suggests.
Because we usually assume that spoken language, words, grammar, syntax, that all came first.
Yeah.
And then eventually somebody invented music as a cultural byproduct.
Right, but the source text flips that assumption entirely upside down. The research shows that acoustic pitch protocols predated spoken language by a massive margin.
That's wild.
Before humanity ever developed clear syntactical words, what the translated text actually refers to as ranmacht, or distinct clear speech, our ancestors used a complex system of pitch, rhythm, and melody.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the mechanism of that. Like, how does a pitch replace a sentence?
Well, think about the cognitive load of inventing and agreeing upon a specific spoken word for every single object, action, and concept in the world.
Yeah, that takes a lot of brain power.
And then creating grammatical rules to string them all together. It is incredibly inefficient for a struggling species.
That makes sense.
But the emotional resonance of a specific tone or a shared rhythm, that conveys danger, comfort, or solidarity instantly.
It's direct.
It triggers a direct biological response without needing a dictionary. Sound was their JavaScript. It was the underlying universal code they needed to sync up their intentions.
Okay, that makes sense conceptually, but sound doesn't fossilize.
No, it doesn't.
So how do we know they weren't just making random noise, like a Neanderthal blowing into a hollow bone? Sounds more like a desperate attempt to scare off a cave bear, not someone trying to invent a sophisticated acoustic protocol.
And you're touching on the exact skepticism archaeologists had for decades. Sound doesn't survive in the dirt. But the tools used to engineer that sound absolutely do.
Well.
And that takes us to a massive paradigm-shifting discovery made in 2008 by Professor Nicholas J. Kennard from the University of Tübingen.
The excavation at the Hohlfels Cave in Germany, which translates to hollow rock.
Yes, hollow rock. And what they found inside that hollow rock completely changed our understanding of human cognitive development.
What was it?
They unearthed the oldest known flutes in the world, dating back 35,000 to 40,000 years.
Yeah, and the details on these artifacts are stunning. I mean, they weren't just crude broken reeds.
Not at all.
They were intricately carved from the wing bones of the griffin vulture, which, sure, are naturally hollow, but then there were the flutes made from the ivory of woolly mammoths.
Yes, the mammoth ivory ones are incredible.
I was reading the source on this, and the mammoth ivory flutes require an insane level of engineering. You can't just hollow out a curved tusk easily.
No, you really can't. You have to carefully split the solid ivory tusk perfectly along its natural grain.
Which seems impossible with stone tools.
It's incredibly difficult. Then, you carve out the inside of the two separate halves to create a uniform hollow chamber.
Wow.
And finally, you have to bind them back together with an airtight seal using prehistoric adhesives and animal sinew. The amount of foresight, planning, and technical skill required is staggering for a society living on the edge of starvation.
Which brings me back to my question. So what does this all mean?
What do you mean?
Why invest all that precious prehistoric energy? If you just want to make a loud noise to scare a predator, you can blow through a simple reed or just yell. Why spend hundreds of hours carving a mammoth tusk?
Because of the holes.
The finger holes.
Yes. The holes drilled into these flutes are the definitive proof that this was not just a noisemaker. They were mathematically and meticulously calculated.
Oh.
The distances between the holes were specifically engineered by these early humans to produce a stable, fixed sequence of pitches.
So they were deliberately manufacturing a standard protocol, a literal physical standard pitch.
Exactly. This is the prehistoric equivalent of creating a universal translator chip. The flutes were precision instruments designed to guarantee that every single time someone blew into them, the exact same frequency was produced.
So we've established they spent massive amounts of energy to hit an exact note. What is the actual biological survival value of standardizing a pitch in the middle of the Ice Age?
To understand the mechanism, we have to look at the evolutionary psychology sources provided in the text. It really comes down to neurochemistry and group dynamics.
Okay, lay it on me.
Professor Robin Dunbar from Oxford University explains that when a group of humans engages in synchronized sound creation, like when they all lock into the exact same acoustic frequency, it triggers a massive neurochemical cascade in the brain.
The text mentions a flood of endorphins, right?
Yes. But not just as a painkiller, it acts as a biological bonding agent. The physical exertion of shared breathing, vocalizing, and listening to a unified pitch stimulates the central nervous system.
Wow.
Dunbar calls this chemical release a social glue. When an entire tribe sings or resonates to a standardized note, that wash of endorphins forces them to feel a profound sense of trust and warmth.
It physically binds 50 fearful individuals into a single cohesive collective.
Exactly.
It basically hacks their neurology.
Yeah.
It bypasses logic and literally forces their brains to sync up and trust each other.
And the source text brings in Professor Ian Cross from Cambridge University, who expands on this with the mechanism of entrainment.
Entrainment, what's that?
Entrainment is the physical synchronization of rhythm and frequency between individuals. You see, the human brain has a unique auditory-motor connection. Our auditory processing cortex is deeply wired into our motor cortex.
Oh, which is why we unconsciously tap our feet when we hear a beat.
Yes. Unlike most other animals, our bodies inherently want to lock onto external rhythms. Words, especially primitive, newly formed syntactical words, they can cause friction.
Right, they can be misunderstood.
Exactly. They can trigger disagreements about meaning. But acoustic resonance, shared frequency, that ensures absolute frictionless cooperation.
Because you aren't debating the definition of a grunt.
Right. Your heart rates are literally aligning, your breathing syncs up.
The text presents this brilliant contrast to illustrate the stakes here. We have two different Ice Age tribes facing a terrifying storm or, like, a predator.
Great thought experiment.
Yeah. In the first scenario, the tribe has no standard protocol. In their panic, every individual starts howling, yelling, and creating piercing pitches in a totally chaotic, random manner.
And that acoustic chaos amplifies the psychological terror. Because there is no shared frequency, there is no entrainment.
They're all out of sync.
The mirror neurons in their brains are receiving frantic, disconnected signals. They become disorganized, scattered, and ultimately easy prey. They are completely isolated, even while standing shoulder to shoulder.
They drop the network connection.
Precisely.
But the second scenario...
In the second scenario, the tribe utilizes their standardized protocol. Someone pulls out the mathematically carved mammoth ivory flute from whole fells.
The standard pitch.
Right. They play that meticulously calculated, fixed pitch. The tribe hears it. Their auditory cortex processes the stable frequency, their motor neurons lock in, and they begin to resonate together at that single unified pitch.
The endorphins flood their systems.
The entrainment synchronizes their breathing. The source text describes the result beautifully, actually. A tribe resonating together creates an invincible mental strength.
That's incredible.
That single standard pitch was their ultimate weapon against the darkness. It was the technology they used to survive.
Man, that reframes the entire concept of music for me.
Yeah.
The flute wasn't an instrument for an audience, it was a survival utility. It was the hardware required to run the group's synchronization software.
And because it was a physical tool with fixed measurements, it allowed for the exact preservation of that protocol.
Right.
These specific frequencies that bound the tribe together could now be passed down through generations without distortion.
Just like a piece of JavaScript code being copied and pasted onto a new server to ensure the website continues to load perfectly for the next user, the protocol survives the passing of time.
Exactly. And as the text notes, this preservation fundamentally changes the trajectory of human history. Eventually, the ass retreated. Humans left those freezing caves and began to build vast civilizations along the great rivers of the world.
Yeah.
And as society grew more complex, this foundational concept of a standard pitch evolved right alongside it.
It stopped being just a desperate biological survival tool and became deeply woven into culture.
Yes. The search for the perfect pitch took on philosophical, supernatural, and even astronomical significance. Civilizations began looking for the one perfect frequency that resonated not just with their local tribe, but with the mathematics of the universe itself.
That's a huge leap.
It is. This centuries-long quest for acoustic order eventually leads us to modern, globally agreed-upon musical standards, like tuning an instrument to 440 hertz. But that entire lineage of standardization started with a meticulously carved piece of bone in a dark cave.
When you lay the mechanics of it out like this, the connection between our sources is undeniable. For you listening right now, think about this the next time you're frustrated with your technology.
Seriously.
Whether you're agonizingly digging through your browser's advanced settings, clicking past security warnings to toggle a JavaScript .enabled preference to true just so your computer can talk to a server, or you are an Ice Age human meticulously splitting mammoth ivory to engineer an exact, mathematically precise musical note.
Yeah.
The underlying human drive is absolutely identical.
It is the exact same biological imperative. We are fundamentally desperate to establish a shared standard.
Yeah.
We engineer protocols to bring order to chaos because those standards are the universal translators that allow us to connect, to understand each other, and ultimately to survive together.
Yeah.
Without the code, we're just isolated nodes howling in the dark.
It's a powerful thought.
This raises an important question, though, something for you to mull over after we wrap up here.
Okay.
We've spent 40,000 years perfecting these protocols to connect with each other, scaling up from bone flutes all the way to broadband internet. But what happens when we inevitably attempt to communicate with an entirely new intelligence out there in the vastness of the universe?
Wow.
When we finally reach out to extraterrestrial life, will our first successful point of contact rely on complex digital mathematics and advanced binary code? Or will it be something as simple, biological, and ancient as a single, perfectly tuned note echoing in the dark?
That is a fascinating thought to leave on. The idea that a prehistoric flute might actually be better preparation for first contact than our most advanced web protocols.
It really makes you wonder.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. We hope this exploration leaves you looking at the everyday protocols in your life, whether it's the code silently running on your phone or the song stuck in your head with a little more wonder. Keep questioning